me to talk more about China's economic rebound is William Li. He's the chief economist at the Milken Institute. So, Bill, what do you make of these numbers? Better than expected growth in the second quarter.
Spectacular production numbers, and this is exactly what we would expect from China. With the fiscal impetus and monetary impetus that's been put in place, we see that the factories and businesses have responded quite nicely. Unfortunately, as the package just said, the consumers are still somewhat reluctant to spend. A lot of the fiscal impetus has been put away in savings, which is very typical for Asia. And I think one of the things that we have to be worried about China's recovery is that the quality of the recovery is still uncertain because the Chinese consumer is still not willing to spend because of the uncertainty about the future, especially about the future for jobs. And the stock market has reacted accordingly. Yesterday the stock market fell by 5% in China, whereas most of Asia only fell by about 0.5%.
One area that is still weak and that shows consumer confidence is not where it needs to be, of course, is retail sales.
Absolutely, and that is a reflection of the lack of confidence that it's really safe to go out and consume. Without a vaccine or some kind of COVID treatment out there that is well accepted and proved to be safe, it's going to be very hard for the service sector in general, especially the facing service sector, for people to come out, go to restaurants, go to gyms, go to the big events that we are used to having spur the service sector the way in China, the way it has in the rest of the world.
Let me ask you about factory production. You mentioned it a little bit there. Factory production and people going back to work. Would you say those were big factors in this rebound that we're seeing?
Oh, that is the factor. In fact, the people going back to work is something that enables income to be produced. It enables people to feel confident that there's some hope of coming back to normalcy again. But unfortunately, most of that production was spurred by fiscal policy, fiscal impetus. You see that the export industries, for example, are building up inventories, and because the rest of the world has not come back in play yet, and so China, being part of the global supply chain, is not able to export as much as before. What we saw in exports, which was very strong in this last quarter, was mainly medical supplies.
And what about China's growth? Can it perhaps help its Asian neighbors, countries like Singapore, Vietnam?
China is going to have to adjust to the new globalization, the new global supply chains that are diversifying out of China, which is what China really wants, because China wants to go into the higher value-added production and production activities. And so a lot of the lower value-added stuff is being pushed out and is accelerated by a lot of the global events that have come about in the last few months. One thing that China has not, I think, shown that it can do yet is to convince everyone who is employed in these industries that are being moved out that they will find jobs in the other industries and service sectors. Because when you move from manufacturing to service sector, generally the wages tend to be lower, and people are not convinced that they are able to consume the same as they did before. And that, as I said, jeopardizes the strength and the quality of the recovery going forward.
So, Bill, what will you be looking for in the months ahead? And what are the remaining challenges for China's economy? Obviously, retail sales and consumer confidence plays a big part of it.
And in order to keep the confidence up, we have to make sure that companies stay in business, so that bankruptcies have to be contained. One of the things that we need to avoid, though, is that policy just can't step in and create these zombie companies that are kept alive because of some kind of fiscal policy. We need the economy to adjust to the new realities, new globalized supply chains, and China to really adjust according to the way market forces are pushing. And that's the hope and prayer that all of us have, because in the rest of the world, we're doing the same thing. The United States is diversifying its supply chains. We're bringing back a lot of industries from abroad. So all economies in the world have to adjust to new realities of globalization.
New realities indeed. William Li, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.